Alex, having spoken to him, and of course he's been everywhere. As a player, he was everywhere. Teams he's managed: Espanyol, Southampton, Tottenham, and PSG. How much longer can he stay out of the game, do you feel?
Well, there was a bit of a Freudian slip in that interview when he said days after the World Cup I should be back in. Then he changed it to weeks, I think. So it suggests to me that he's absolutely desperate to get back into management. Obviously, he hinted there the Aston Villa interest came a little bit too soon. I wonder if we can read anything into the fact that he said he would make a decision on his future after the World Cup. Does he perhaps have his eye on an international job? Does he perhaps have his eye on an England job that may well become vacant?
Do you think he's ready for that? I mean, he's been linked with the England job before. So, Simon, if it goes wrong for Southgate, is it Mauricio Pochettino? Could you imagine it? Argentine manager in charge of your beloved national team?
Well, he's 50 years of age, so he's not a young manager, but he's certainly not an older manager. The domestic cut and thrust against the international regime are vastly different. So I would imagine that it would be less attractive for him if he's a motivated manager. So I'd be surprised. I would be more inclined to believe that he'll land back somewhere at a significant club. Now, what a significant club means is open to interpretation. I have never viewed him as an elite manager. I think undeniably he's a very good manager. Undeniably. There were outrage when Nigel Adkins was drop-kicked out of Southampton and Mauricio Pochettino was parachuted in, and that outrage turned to delight based upon the football that they then saw. There's no doubt that he made a very good generation of Tottenham players compete at a very high level for a period of time, and I think he stole defeat from the jaws of victory in being in a Champions League final that they didn't turn up in.
I think that's harsh.
Okay, that's what opinions are. They're all subjective.
It was a missed opportunity.
And a Premier League that ultimately you have to give credit to Leicester too.
How can you say he's not an elite manager?
Because I think the elite managers, I think elite is a terminology that's thrown around far too often. Like world class is thrown around far too often. There can only be a few that are elites, and I don't think he falls into that category. I don't think that he will land a top six job, and what you look like top six these days can be a moving feast. But let's go down the conventional wisdom in the Premier League that it's the age-old top six of Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea and Man City.
He excelled at Tottenham.
I think he did a very good job. And you're
saying to us he couldn't get, he's not really fit for a top six job.
I think he did a very good job at Tottenham Hotspur with a very good group of players at a very good time. I don't think he had the juice for some reason or another to convince Daniel Levy to do things that he's done with other managers like Conte and to some extent like he did with Mourinho.
He was probably a bit too nice when it came to those conversations.
But that's part and parcel of being an elite manager. Now maybe he's learnt to be different. I don't like to hear about people rubbing crystals or putting lemons in bowls as some sort of solution to the idea of how karma works in a room. I think that's all nonsense. But the bottom line is I think he's there and thereabouts. I think he's a rung below. I think he's below Klopp. I think he's below Conte. I think he's below obviously Pep Guardiola. I look at him in those brackets, so I think he's an exceptional manager, but not of the kind that Mourinho would have once referred to himself, well, not one out of a bottle. I think he's in that sort of space. I'd have him at Crystal Palace every day of the week, but I wouldn't advocate for him to be at Manchester United or Liverpool.
He's bigger than Palace, with all due respect to your former club.
You're missing my point.
To get Tottenham to a Champions League final, Tottenham, who in my lifetime have made very little impact on any major competition.
And the stars aligned. At the end of the day, the stars aligned for Mourinho, for Pochettino in terms of a good group of players that were there and available, and he got them going in the right direction. But he didn't win. So you define elite, whether you like it or you don't, you define elite by winning. Now, only so many people can win, which means only so many people can be elite.
But how many world-class players did Tottenham have in that team that got to the Champions League final?
Well, it depends what you consider to be... Again, let's stop with this ridiculous notion that there are so many world-class players around. Because a world-class player, as one of our erstwhile former colleagues talks about, is an idea of how many other teams they could get into. A world-class player gets into can get into any side and any team. And I think that using the expression, and I think if you look at Liverpool's side at that time, how many world-class players did they have in their side?
I think the Liverpool team was better than the Spurs team.
Possibly, but the Spurs' performance in that European Champions League final was abject.
Dodgy handball decision.
But it was still abject. It was an abject performance.
But he came from nowhere, Sammy, with all due respect to Espanyol.
What are you, the Mauricio Pochettino cheerleading section, you two?
I love him. I think he's fantastic.
I think he certainly is due a bit more than you're giving him.
Oh, no.
When he came here...
Okay, where's he go then? What do you think he's entitled to?
Here's the situation. Alex, correct me if I'm wrong. When he came over to Southampton, everybody was saying, Mauricio who?
We just did that bit.
Now, Cortese and his people there, if the truth be told, and you're probably privy to this, Alex, they did not go with the intention to Espanyol to come back with Pochettino. They were over there to try and get a hold of Philippe Coutinho.
They were.
And Pochettino caught the eye at a game so much, they thought, got to have him. But
what's that got to do with an elite manager
and
job?
Took Southampton onto a different level.
And we all concur with that particular analogy and that particular story.
And then went to Tottenham and took Tottenham onto a different level.
And he took Tottenham to a certain level. Now, what I'm suggesting is there was another level to go. So he took Tottenham to the brink of being successful in something and walked out with being a winner in nothing.
And he'll have learned from that.
And I think his performance at PSG was bang average. I think his attitude of being in at PSG and all we heard was wanting to be out the door, no longer sincere. I don't think these are necessarily the traits of elite management, and there could be a different argument that perhaps it is, because many managers, agitate for moves when it suits something that suits them better. I remain to be convinced, and there's nothing being said here about his tenure at Southampton and Tottenham that tell me that he lands at Man United and changes the direction of travel and unwinds Guardiola, unwinds Conte, and in Conte's pursuit of a Tottenham side that can compete again where Pochettino left them off at.
I think he's an elite coach. And if you look at the players that improved under him, Luke Shaw probably, as an 18-year-old, played the best football of his career under Mauricio Pochettino. He got Ricky Lambert in the England squad. Adam Lallana arguably got the move to Liverpool on the back of Pochettino. Danny Rose at Tottenham. And where's Danny Rose now? He was brilliant under Pochettino. Dele Alli, his career since Pochettino left has gone...
And that's fine. The sun shines on even on a dog's backside sometimes. I'm talking about elite management. I'm talking about guys that can win. You're making a case for him to be an elite manager, and you're suggesting that's the case. Now, okay, he's won something in the French league. Well done. So does everybody when they manage PSG. I do not believe he lands in the top 6 in the Premier League and becomes an elite manager in that space. And only time will tell.
I could see him back at Spurs. If Conte goes to Juventus, he might not go to Juventus now with their problems.
With Daniel.
I could see him back at Spurs.
Okay. I don't see that happening. And I don't see him managing Chelsea. And I don't see him managing Liverpool. And I don't see him managing Manchester City.
You don't think he's a better manager than Graham Potter?
Yeah, I think at this moment in time, that would be a silly argument for me to make. But will Graham Potter become a better manager than him? Well, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. Some would say Graham Potter's journey has been equally as compelling for different reasons.
So you see Ten Hag's an elite coach now?
Do I see Ten Hag as an elite coach?
Don't repeat it. You know what I'm asking you.
I'm about to answer your question. I think he was an elite coach in the job that he did for Ajax. I don't think that managing Man United is a very easy job, and I'm not entirely sure that he has the strength to overcome what Man United has become. And that's the reasons why perhaps you had the problems with Ronaldo. But I think Ten Hag, with his backdrop of winning things, makes him an elite coach. Yeah. Pochettino has won very little.
Alex is arguing with himself.
I'm not. You're not making a compelling case. You're just arguing the fact that he went to Southampton. You're making my very point for me. He went to Southampton, did a great job. That's where I think he is. Mid-table Premier League manager. That's what I think he is.
He excelled at top 6 club. We're agreed on that. He excelled at Tottenham.
He had a moment in time at Tottenham but didn't win anything. I don't think, and we can debate this.
Now you're being silly. You're playing on words here.
I'm not playing on words. I don't think...
No one's won anything at Tottenham, as Alex rightly says.
Well, fine. That's fine. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the opportunity that he had in a unique Premier League season, at a moment in time there's not been before, besides Jack Walker coming in and breaking up the cartel for one season and one season only. Yeah. Tottenham stole defeat from the jaws of victory there, and they didn't turn up at a Champions League final. And he spent half the time crying in the Man City semi-final.
Alex, I bet you that Conte doesn't take Tottenham to a Champions League final.
There you go.
We'll see, won't we?
We'll see.
But I bet he wins something.